Kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. Sometimes it's easy to forget that just the tiny little things can make the biggest difference, and that little small, why not? Little small acts of kindness can sometimes make a huge difference. This is a story that I experienced in college with a foreign exchange student named Mari, and it's one of my most treasured life lessons or memories to kind of keep in mind, an affirmation of how much kindness really does matter. So I hope that you enjoy. When I was in college, as most college students, I lived in the dorms, I ate at the cafeteria. At our university, we had a Japanese foreign exchange student program. All the ones that I met were super fun. We had a few on our floor. There was one guy named, we thought his name was Yosuke. We were like, Yosuke! And he was a party animal. I think he only lasted a semester because maybe he partied a little bit too hard. Here's a picture of me and him. Anyways, one day I was at the cafeteria getting some lunch, and I'd gone through the line, and I noticed this Japanese girl, and she starts pointing at my shirt and she starts laughing, and I'm like, what's so funny? Like, what, oh. And so she was pointing at my shirt. One of my favorite things is to go thrift shopping, either with myself or with friends. And so I had found this shirt like the year before. There was this black shirt and it had this character on it. I didn't know if it was Japanese or Chinese or what it was. I just thought it looked cool. And so she's pointing at it, she's laughing at it and giggling. And I'm like, what? I'm like, do you know what this means? And she laughs and she's like, kind of nods. I'm like, what does it mean? And she's like, it means number one. And I'm like, oh, so you probably think I'm super conceited. Like, I didn't know what it meant. So anyways, she was just a super sweet, bubbly girl, and so she's trying to have a conversation with me. But it's really difficult to understand her. Her English is not very good. It's very broken. Like the pronunciation, it was really hard to understand. And so sometimes it would take like 5, 6, maybe even 7 times going back and forth trying to rephrase it or say it over and over again, and then like one more time, like I'm sorry, like and then we would finally I would understand it and I would get it, and then it would be like we would both be like, it would be like just this victory, and we would kind of start laughing like, oh, that's so cool, okay, yeah, good. And the little victories, just it felt good to move past that communication barrier, that language barrier, and to work that hard for just these tiny little pieces of communicating ourselves to one another. And so I would see her periodically in the cafeteria. When I first met her, she introduced herself. Her name was Mari. I'm like, oh, my name is Scott. And so I would see Mari every now and then, every few days. So anyways, I didn't see her for quite some time. And so a whole year goes by, and I spent 2 years at this particular university, and then I was transferring to another university, and I had to go to the administration building to get some transcripts and some other things. And so I was walking to the administration building, and there's this girl in the distance, and as I approach more, she waves and she's like, Scott. And I'm like, I couldn't really make out who she was at first. And then she comes up and I'm like, Mari? She's like, it's Mari, right? And she's like, yeah, you remembered my name. I'm like, of course. Like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? Like, and she tells me what she's doing, and she's like, I'm doing really good. Like, then all of a sudden she got very serious. She's like, I need to tell you something really important. And I'm like, just her whole tone changes. I'm like, okay, what's up? Like, she's like, well, last year, I came to America as a foreign exchange student, and I didn't realize how hard it would be. I was so homesick, and I wasn't doing very well in school. I was having problems finding people to talk to, and none of the Americans were would talk to me, and I would try to make conversation, and they would ignore me or avoid me, or they get frustrated with me or irritated, and I just couldn't have a conversation with them, and I just felt like a failure, and I just felt depressed, and I felt like I didn't belong here, and that maybe I just go back home. And I was actually ready to go back home. I was ready to call it quits, and I was ready to go home. And then I met you, and you were very kind to me, and you listened to me, and you found it hard to understand me too, but you took the time to listen and to understand, and you were very patient with me, and that gave me the hope. It's like to continue my studies here in America, and I just wanted to thank you. And I was like, oh my gosh, crazy. And so I like give her a big hug, and I'm like, you're welcome. Like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm so happy that you stayed here in the States, and you continued. Like, that's awesome. Like, your English is so good now. Like, great job. That's awesome. And it was such a touching experience. She's like, okay, well, I'm in a hurry and I gotta go. I was like, oh, I do too. Like, it's so good to see you, and thank you again. So, wow, you never know how. I never thought that any of that interaction was really anything, like I didn't think that would have any consequence. I didn't think I was doing anything special. I was just trying to be a decent human being to this person who wanted to have a conversation. I knew it was probably a struggle for her, and just being patient and being present and being like available and providing a connection for someone, that made a huge change in her life. Like, sometimes we go through a period where our life can diverge in two paths, and it's just crazy to me that just being nice and having a conversation with her from time to time made the difference between her feeling depressed and like a failure and leaving, and just having a bad going home and feeling like probably dejected and upset about not having a good experience in America, and feeling bad about herself about that, versus like feeling that, yeah, like I do belong here, and I should persevere, and I should continue with my studies, and then staying, and then seeing like how much better it can get, and that her English was so good. It was really good. And man, so I hope that this story illustrates that no act of kindness is too small, and that us as human beings, we need social connection. We are social animals. We need connection. We need just simple things like eye contact and smiling and being present, like being interested in someone's day. It's like, how are you doing? And like being authentic and sincere about it can make the difference in someone's day. Sometimes it can make a difference in their life. And I feel very grateful and touched that something so small as having conversations periodically with a sweet little Japanese foreign exchange student could make that big of a difference in her life and change maybe the course of her life. It's like, who would think? The other thing is, we never know what the other person is going through. We never know what kind of day they've had, what kind of week, what kind of month, what kind of year. And so even when it's not easy to be kind to someone, I think that we always should, and we never know the impact that can have. Sometimes we are hanging on by a thread, and we've had one of those days where it's like Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and sometimes we just feel like we're at our wits' end, and just waiting for that last straw on the camel's back to break the back. And sometimes just the smallest thing, just acknowledging someone and asking them how their day is can change their day. So if you found this touching or inspiring, or if it inspired you to want to show more kindness and make you more mindful about it, please share it with someone else as well. And thank you for listening. I will see you in the next video. Take care.